What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 142, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking Microsoft winning their FTC case, question mark? Little thing to throw in there. We also have news of a new Black Panther game in development, and the ID at Xbox showcase was awesome, so we're going to talk about all that and more, but got to introduce my co-host. Back for the second episode, he didn't leave me. JamPackSam, how we doing, buddy?
What is up, man? We're back for round two. I am pumped to be here. We have another week of FTC action, but also the bigger story, the ID at Xbox showcase with plenty of good stuff there. You know, I'm all about the games, but I am doing fantastic, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear. I actually we'll talk about it more, but I'm very pleasantly surprised with that idea at Xbox Showcase. I went with low
Same.
expectations, but we'll go through. But we do have a lot on our plate, so let's get right into it. If you're new here, remember you can catch us live every Thursday right here on YouTube. If you miss us live, we post every Friday morning on your favorite audio platform of choice. So while you're over there, please drop us that 5-star review. That's Apple, Spotify. It helps us grow in that algorithm. I've seen a few new faces coming in. I can only assume it's working because we are almost at a combined 100 worldwide reviews across Spotify and Apple. If you guys keep dropping those ratings, we're going to pass 100 in no time. Plus, if you need a little more incentive, as I mentioned last week, if you rate us and let me know, whether Discord, Twitter, you're entered to win the Starfield Premium Digital Edition. That's that $100. I already got it ready to go for you. So if you want that, you can enter. Just review us or subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're over on YouTube right now. But if that is enough and you want to support us further and get early access to Save the Game Media content and exclusive bonus post shows, head over to patreon.com/Save the Game Media. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Bucky Blue, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Brianna's wife, Nikolai at Night, Cypher Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, The Snack Network, David Hotright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, and Alpaca Tom. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. But let's keep this train a rolling, Sam. I want to know, like we do each and every week, what have you been playing?
Dude, I had a weird one this week. So last week we talked, I was playing some Metal Hellsinger. We were getting into that. I wrapped that up, I believe, shortly after or before the show last week. We were playing some Crash Team Rumble. For some reason, I've been super busy this week, so I needed a game that I could just dive into and just kind of, pick up and go whenever I had time. Need for Speed Unbound
Oh,
has
okay.
now gone. It is now on my dashboard. I had it whenever it was a game trial, and then it got added to EA Play. I've got a physical copy over here too, but I was just in the mood for a little arcade racer, so I dove in. Very stylish little game. It's got some nice cartoony effects to it, but I think maybe the Underground 2 session that I had a couple of weekends ago inspired me. So Need for Speed is not in its glory days, but it's not dead yet. So I'm really enjoying that.
All right, all right. How does it? I haven't played a Need for Speed game in ages. Probably is this more of a? Is there like a story? Because I know there was like that Most Wanted at certain
Mhm.
points. Like, or is it back to its arcadey traditional roots?
I mean, it's kind of a blend of both. The story is definitely there. So you basically play as somebody who is working for this guy that owns a garage, typical trope in the Need for Speed Burnout kind of vibe. And so there's just this story of betrayal. You're trying to get your car back. You're in the underground race scene in this city with the mayor that's trying to crack down on underground racing. And so it's just got this kind of like rebellion to it, I guess, where it's
Okay.
just the rebellious scene. So I'm digging it, man. You're not gonna win any awards with the story,
Mm-hmm.
but it does what it needs to do. It delivers the game. So that's all I want.
That's awesome, and that's one I've heard good things about. I think Ryan Turford over at Carpool Gaming spoke highly of it as well. There's just so much to play, and I'm like, I don't know if I got time for Need for Speed right now. And I was apart from Underground 2, which classic. That
Oh
soundtrack
yeah.
goaded. I think we were talking about that in Discord earlier this week, but I was more of a Burnout guy, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
loved Burnout, like Takedown, Revenge. Oh, it's so good.
Takedown is I have definitive memories of sitting down with my dad and just wrecking cars for like 4 or 5 hours. That is a phenomenal game. I've got a copy of Revenge on the shelf over here.
Ooh,
Revenge is very good as well. So
all
I'm right
right.
there with you. I agree.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, as you said, we jumped into some Crash Team Rumble earlier this week. We had some fun. My brother got a little salty.
You
If
did.
you ever wondering if people can get upset about Crash Team Rumble, they can. They can, but we've been playing. I'm down to 2 achievements. I just need to stop a gem capture with Embryo and get my Dingo Dial to max level, and then I'm done. I got all the other achievements. So I'm working my way through that. I started replaying Man of Medan. That's one of those Dark
Cool.
Picture games. My girlfriend wanted to play more of those horror ones, and she didn't play that one originally. So I downloaded that, Little Hope, and Until Dawn. So we're going through those, just working our way. It's like a movie horror night. We'll keep chugging along with that. And I'm still making my way through the Caligula Effect 2, that JRPG I talked about last week. Sam, I gotta tell you, man, this game is not good.
No?
This game
Dang.
is getting worse. The more I play it, I'm like, this game is again. I
Wow.
don't know what they did, but they were like, what if we made the first 2 dungeons pretty good and then the rest of the game pretty bad? Like just
Wow.
hallways and annoying enemies. And there's like good story bits here and there, but the amount of trash I'm slogging through to get there is
Dang.
is very rough.
It's tough.
I can't recommend this game to people.
Maybe they looked and they were like, we see these completion rates and we see that people get through 15% of a game before putting it down. What if we just put all of our money into the first 3 hours?
Mhm.
After that, no one's playing it anyway.
That
And then here comes Kevin. And
it's
he's
fair.
just there to take it.
Oh, I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna be. It's one of those. I put on a podcast now, and some see very important. Skip this. We'll go to the next combat encounter. It's yeah, it's not great. I like the first one much better, but this is a small team. They don't make the best JRPGs. All right, they're very much like I would almost call them like a single A JRPG developer, but we're going through. We're going through. Ghostly March. Can I hold any family barbecues in game? Oh, you're talking about, I assume, racing games, Fast and Furious. I think that's what
There
you're
are
interpreting.
actually, there is a barbecue reference. So I picked that up. Yeah, you could. There is a family barbecue at some point, I believe, in Need for Speed Unbound.
Oh, okay. Well, Sam, not really much more to talk about what I've been playing. Plus, we have so much news to talk about. Why don't we jump right into that, get this show underway? So, story number one, and everyone stay tuned. This is going to be a lot of Activision Blizzard court news drama. So, if you're not interested in that, you can skip to the next story and the timestamps. But for anyone that isn't, let's talk about it. So, the injunction was denied. This comes from Tom Warren at The Verge. Quote, a California judge is allowing Microsoft to close its acquisition of Activision Blizzard after 5 days of grueling testimony. Microsoft still faces an ongoing antitrust case by the FTC, but Judge Corley has listened to arguments from both the FTC and Microsoft and decided to deny the regulator's request for a preliminary injunction. Judge Corley, quote, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been described as the largest in tech history. It deserves scrutiny. That scrutiny is paid off. Microsoft is committed in writing, in public, and in court to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years on parity with Xbox. It made an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Switch, and it entered several agreements to, for the first time, bring Activision's content to several cloud gaming services. This court's responsibility in this case is narrow. It is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, this merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending resolution of the FTC administrative action. For the reasons explained, the court finds the FTC has not shown a likelihood it will prevail on its claim this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for a preliminary injunction is therefore denied. I'm going to stop you right there. Sam, Judge Corley laying it all out there for us why she has denied their motion for this injunction. What are we feeling right off the bat? We're going to get to some reactions from some people in Microsoft, and then we got some other news. But I'm just feeling. You think her reasoning is sound here?
I think that the writing was on the wall throughout the entire case. I mean, when you see, and I've heard other podcasts call it out too, Microsoft has more, or I should say, deeper pockets to dig in and pay for better lawyers, do more research, have an entire team. Whereas the FTC, while it still is a government body, they don't have that deep bench of legal professionals. they're tripping over their words. They're trying to reference Jim Ryan, the competitor to Xbox, and use his words as evidence of why this deal shouldn't go through. Um, when you're relying on that rather than just looking at the facts of whether or not this deal is going to harm consumers blatantly, like it is going to be a negative impact on consumers. If you can't answer that question with a yes and a definitive reason why, then there's no legal reason why the deal should not be able to go through and go forward. And that's what the outcome was. And I think that we all kind of saw that coming, but this is just the confirmation.
Yeah, I like that she laid out the reasoning, because I think we've seen people even try to pick it apart. Where there are some accusations that, well, the judge isn't, doing the statute correctly, like the law, like the wording may versus like will, and it's a whole. I personally think people are being a little pedantic, and I even saw Hogue Law over there on Twitter and friends over at the Bitcast. He said like the law is pretty clear. Like they didn't misinterpret anything. So I think from what we saw in court that this outcome was pretty much inevitable. But we have some reactions that I want to get to. So Microsoft President Brad Smith issued the following statement, said, quote, "We're grateful to the court in San Francisco for this quick and thorough decision and hope other jurisdictions will continue working towards a timely resolution. As we've demonstrated consistently throughout the process, we're committed to working creatively and collaboratively to address regulatory concerns." Head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, reacted with the following, quote, "We're grateful to the court for swiftly deciding in our favor. The evidence showed the Activision Blizzard deal is good for the industry, and the FTC's claims about console switching, multi-game subscription services, and cloud don't reflect the realities of the gaming market. Since we first announced the deal, our commitment to bringing more games to more people on more devices has only grown. We've signed multiple agreements to make Activision Blizzard games, Xbox first-party games, and Game Pass all available to more players than they are today. We know that the players around the world have been watching this case closely, and I'm proud of our efforts to expand player access and choice throughout this journey." So the judge's ruling now allows Microsoft to close its Activision Blizzard deal ahead of the July 18th deadline, but only if the company is willing to close around the UK or if the CMA is willing to negotiate some form of remedy. There is currently an appeals hearing set for July 28th for the CMA, but both parties actually have agreed to postpone that because they've entered remedy negotiations. In a statement from Brad Smith, "After today's court decision in the US, our focus now turns back to the UK. While we ultimately disagree with the CMA's concerns, we're considering how the transaction might be modified in order to address those concerns in a way that's acceptable to the CMA." So almost done. Almost done. That we can actually talk. So
You're doing good, man. You're doing great.
reportedly, Microsoft and the CMA did agree to a small divestiture that came from CNBC, although the details of which have yet to be revealed. The CMA was quick to reiterate that they are in the early stages of these discussions and that any restructuring of the deal could lead to a new merger investigation. Last night, we get the final twist, hopefully, in this. The FTC announced they were appealing the ruling. However, if the Court of Appeals does not rule before the existing temporary restraining order expires on Friday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, Microsoft is cleared to close the deal in the next few days ahead of their July 18th deadline. Sam, lot of information there, first of all. But do you think that next week this deal will be done by whatever high level thought you can, looking at everything we know that's going on with the appeal, with the discussions with the CMA, are we thinking that they're going to get this deal done within the next 7 days?
Oh yeah, within the next 7 days. I mean, another piece of this story that I don't think that we're going to touch on later, but ABK is already said to be delisted from the Nasdaq on Monday. Like it's no longer going to be tradable. You can't buy stock in ABK as of Monday
Mm,
whenever the bell rings. So the fact that that's already in motion, like they have already said, "Hey, you can go ahead and delist us. We are under them now."
mm,
Like that says everything you need to know from the very beginning. Microsoft wouldn't have started down this road if they didn't go to a whole team of legal professionals and say, "Can we really do this?" Like looking at the worst case scenarios, anything that could go wrong going wrong, can we get this deal through? The majority probably said yes, and they said, "All right, let's do it. We're going to fight to the end. Let's make this thing happen." You're probably going to see it, if not this weekend, first thing Monday. Like I think it is, it's a done deal at this point, in my opinion.
hmm Yeah, I'm very much in the same camp as you, where I think the deal is basically, I think I put 99.9% done, because there always is a chance, and I don't think it's a good one, that an appeals court does give them some sort of temporary restraining order. I doubt it's going to happen, looking at the reasons. I think Tom Warren just put out a tweet. The reason that the FTC is appealing, their argument doesn't seem very strong. It is, point number one is them arguing, like I said, the language that the judge is using is misused, and M&A lawyers have said that isn't true. So I think the FTC is clutching at straws here. My big concern is still the CMA, and how closing without negotiations or remedies being agreed in the UK would affect UK gamers specifically. That is only my concern. If they can, I, I'm not familiar with how it works, to be fair, but if they can close the deal by all accounts and then just continue negotiating and hopefully get the best outcome, that is great. If them closing basically ends negotiations, I don't think that is a good outcome, because from what I've heard, what then they can't publish Activision games in the UK. Those games might not be able to come to Game Pass in the UK. And once we get to those regional differences, we would see, I think, a split in the fan base, right? Like that wouldn't be a good look for Microsoft, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. Again, not a legal professional. I do not think that whenever the deal is signed and the ink is dry, that they stop negotiating with the CMA, and they, because at the end of the day, the CMA and UK government want Microsoft to be in the country doing
Hmm.
business. They do want that done under their terms, but they want that revenue, and gamers want to be able to play Xbox games on cloud, on console, on PC, and they want it on Game Pass if they choose to get Game Pass. And the question is, what is the path to get there? What do they need to do to get these deals signed so that they can make that happen? I think that the CMA statement of it could lead to a new merger investigation, that is just run of the mill legal jargon. Like, yes, of course it would. If it is substantially different and they need to investigate it, then yeah, it could lead to something else. But if they review it and they say, all right, good to go, maybe there isn't an investigation into it. Maybe they say, okay, this fits our bill, go for it. Um, I do think that there right now, based on where the CMA is at with their negotiations, I don't know what's happening behind closed doors any more than the next
Hmm.
guy. But if they are further out than 3 days, I think this thing totally closes without the CMA signing off, and then they deal with the UK later. I think that's been a thread of conversation for the past month, and I could totally see that being the case because the US is one of the main points of focus. And the fact that they got that FTC approval, lock that down before you don't have it. Like you've got the green light, floor it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that what, personally, I just want an end to the whole saga, because it is, you see a lot of discourse on social media, and like we always do. I've seen people giving death threats to the judge over this, and a whole lot of nonsense where it is very much, this was billion and trillion dollar companies just trying to make more money. Yes, do I think, and I've heard this, Sam, and maybe you can chime in. I've heard people question, why are we excited for this deal to go through? Like, why would you want this deal to go through, right? And for me, I've always said, like, I never really cared if Activision Blizzard went through. I was never pro or against. I thought, in terms of the argument against it, it was a pretty weak argument. I thought Microsoft should be allowed. But am I over here like, yes, we got Activision Blizzard? Not really. I think this is a benefit for console. Game Pass is really, if you are a Game Pass subscriber, I think this is a huge benefit for you, because you're going to get tons of new games, old and new games going forward. And we just saw that price increase a few weeks ago. Well, I think it just went into effect, but we just saw that new price increase, and that, to me, that kind of justifies, like, okay, if we're adding value to this service, and that is ultimately a good thing for gamers at the end of, like, the industry at large. If you are doing this to make money, but if you're also benefiting the consumer at the end of the day, that's a win-win for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think that for me, like you said, at the ground level of where we are today, doesn't matter if the deal goes through or not, because Call of Duty is still going to be available everywhere. People are still going to be playing good Activision Blizzard games. These things still happen. But if the deal does go through, Game Pass expands those audiences even more. More people get more access to more games. That's what the whole thing has been about from the very beginning. That's what Phil Spencer said from day one. It's about more people playing more games wherever they want to play them. And for now, games are going to continue to be available on PlayStation. They're signing deals with cloud gaming services. It is just about growing that gaming community and freeing it up to buy your games, get your games through a service, whatever you want to do. But I'm excited about the potential for not only the Xbox community, but people on PC, the people on the
Mm.
cloud that haven't played these older Activision games. Even today, not sure if it's a coincidence or not, but older Call of Duty games that have had server issues for years, like COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3, they are back up and running. People can join in on Xbox 360 and start playing old Call of Duty games again. Uh,
What?
yeah, there have been issues with the servers apparently for like years, and no one's been able to play online, even though it's clear that there's an audience here. And so people are diving back in. So could that be something that they're like, hey, get these servers ready? These games are coming to Game Pass. You better make sure that they're shored up because all these people that played COD 4 are jumping back in, probably not next week, but like in the months ahead, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so stuff like that, revitalize old games, bring people into games that are popping right now through Game Pass eventually. I mean, that's all super exciting stuff. I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, and we actually have a question about that. Taylor wrote in a question for this week's show. Sooner or later than March 2024 for the past Call of Duty campaigns to hit Game Pass. So he wants to know what do we think, how soon we think these are going to be hitting the service.
I mean, I know that for day one Call of Duty releases, I think Tom Warren's coverage said 2025 is when that'll be available.
New
So,
ones.
yeah, thinking about the old games that are in the library, I mean, that could easily be like what they did with Bethesda, where they drop them a couple of days after the deal goes through. I assume they've probably been preparing something on the back end, maybe the backbone of what that looks like. And again, I don't know what's legally allowed as far as preparation goes, but it would be awesome to see everything from the original Call of Duty all the way up until, let's say, I don't know, Black Ops 2, like all of those games land on the service. That would be
Mm.
awesome, you know, just to be able to see all of that amazing content just randomly land on Game Pass and be there in perpetuity without an end in sight. Oh my gosh,
Did
that's amazing.
Did you see that? I think it was a fan made thing about it was like waking up July 15th or whatever, and it was like the 30 whatever games like Call of Duty, the old Spider-Man games, active. Clearly,
Please.
that's not going to happen because licensing issues. Like
Right, right.
we're probably
We're
not
not going to
getting
see
a
Web
lot of
of
those.
Shadows on Game
Oh, I
Pass.
wish.
That would
That'd
be
be awesome, man.
amazing.
That'd be awesome. But I was just trying to find like how soon after Bethesda was officially confirmed did we get some games, and it wasn't too long. So I would say we definitely was it 3 days?
3 days.
Wow. Okay. So I would definitely say that we see this before March 2024. If they close within the next week or whatever, right? I wouldn't think we go the summer without seeing at least some older titles join the service.
I think that's a pretty good prediction. I think that again, it depends on what they can do legally, but once the deal is signed and everything's done, you would want to capitalize on the amount of press you're getting right now. Like everybody is talking about this deal. What better way to cap off this horrible string of FTC hearings and CMA hearings and negative? Is it happening? Is it not? Cap it all off with, hey guys, we did it. Here are 30 games coming to Game Pass tomorrow. Go play Call of Duty and have a good time. That's awesome. I'm pumped about that.
That leads to a TJI in the chat who's hanging out with us. Thanks for showing up. He says, honest questions. Are you guys excited about this deal? ABK from a console perspective is boring. They have no games. I th-
Interesting.
that's an interesting take. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Activision has, especially because it's Activision Blizzard, I think they have quite a few games. At least for me, I know Diablo is always. I love Diablo 4. I love Diablo 3. That's one for me. Crash is huge. I'm a huge Crash Bandicoot fan. Spyro, I would love. I
Mhm.
haven't. I own the Crash remake trilogy. I don't own the Spyro ones yet. So as soon as that goes into Game Pass, you better believe I'm downloaded and playing the old Spyro games. I'm gonna like try to recapture my love of Spyro as well. So I think they have quite a few things that would excite me, even not being the biggest Call of Duty guy. Like there are a few Call of Duties I loved in the back in the day, but I'm more interested in some of their other properties.
Yeah, I think that when you look at what's current, like you're looking at the current slate of games,
Hmm.
yes, very limited as far as what new stuff is coming out and what new stuff is available right now. Like if you look at the ABK lineup, you've got literally Diablo, you've got WoW that's ongoing, Overwatch, Call of Duty. That's pretty much it that's in the public eye.
Hmm.
But, I went over to lordsofgaming.net. They've got a whole list of the IPs that Microsoft will acquire once the deal is done. Like you said, we're talking about Crash Bandicoot. We've got Spyro mixed in there. I know Phil Spencer had a Hexen shirt on,
Hmm.
Guitar Hero, Geometry Wars. You got StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm potentially coming back. Like those kind of things. Singularity is on the list. Love me some Singularity.
Great game.
Prototype prototype just stuff like that where you get excited about the older games that could just be added randomly dropped into Game Pass. I think that's what's exciting. As far as like, will Diablo 4 come into Game Pass? Not on day one. I'm sure there are
No.
deals around that. So like if
Hmm.
you're excited about new games right now, then yeah, deal's super boring. You probably got about 2 years before you start seeing the impact
I
of
would
it.
agree with that. I would
Yeah.
agree with that for sure. Because I think I forget who I was talking to, but I answered someone in the community like what changes, and I said in the near future, not very much, to be
Mhm.
honest with you. Like we probably won't see the effects of this deal for 2 more years, and then we'll start getting like studios working on hopefully old IPs, maybe some new things, and not just being the Call of Duty churn it and burn it factory that Activision seems to turn into these days. So,
Yep.
uh, yes, TJ, I see your second question, and that actually leads to another question from Thrak, who wrote one in the Discord. Join the Discord. We put up a thread every week asking for questions. So, do you think the ABK merger will increase game output and variety for Xbox and Game Pass, like Toys for Bob making a Banjo Kazooie remake, for example?
That's a good question. Will they leverage ABK developers to build projects that they wouldn't normally get? I think that the way that Xbox is as a publisher, they let the developers kind of choose what they want to do. So if Toys for Bob came and they said, "Hey, hey Phil, we're the Spyro Crash guys. We really want to make a Banjo Kazooie," then Phil would be like, "Yeah, totally, thumbs up, green light it, do whatever you want to do."
Hmm.
If they came and they were like, "Hey, we want to do our own thing. We want to make an entirely new whatever, new platformer, new kart race, or anything like that," they could totally bounce on that. So I could see it going either way. Like if they wanted to do that, then Xbox would probably allow it. The good question though is like, will they force some developers to work on other IP? Like, will they, top of mind for me, make Treyarch make a Halo game, or bring some of those developers over to say, hey, 343 not doing so hot right now,
Hmm.
but Sledgehammer, like I know you guys have some Call of Duty chops. Can you come over here and make Halo 6 or Halo 7? That'd be neat. I'd like to see that.
I would like to see sort of like an outline, or maybe at the inevitable round table we get with the Activision Blizzard people, like they did for Bethesda, right? And kind of, I would love to see Phil, Sarah, the team just lay out like what do they think that this merger would kind of allow them to do. And hopefully the answer is things like bring back older IPs, free up some of the teams that have been working on Call of Duty, because I know TGI in the chat, they brought up Toys for Bob won't be doing anything because they're busy with Call of Duty. Call of Duty is the beast that needs to be fed. And I understand your point. Toys for Bob is doing Crash Team Rumble though. Like they developed Crash Team Rumble, they're actively supporting it. They put out a balance patch this week. They've put out multiple dev blogs this week about new game modes coming, new stages, new characters, and additional support that they're going to continue. So like this is a new live service initiative that they have a team working on that can be fed. So whether Toys for Bob has enough manpower to maybe get pulled off of Call of Duty, and maybe someone like 343 can step in and work on Call of Duty, give them a break from Halo. It just opens up a whole new possibilities. I'm not saying any of this will happen, but I'm just saying that the possibility is there because you have new IPs, you have developers that hopefully will have a new sense of life and freedom, because we know with Bethesda they're still very hands off. Like they're letting them do what they want, for better or for worse, as we see with Redfall. So
Yep.
whatever happens, we'll know in the next year or two, I think, probably what the future is going to look like for these type of things, because we'll start to see them at like the Xbox showcases. We'll hear rumblings. I'm sure Jason Schreier is going to do some deep dives into how the studio cultures have integrated at some point. So we're gonna know. I don't know. Like I see people, oh, they're gonna bring back Singularity, and I'm like, I don't know about all that. It'd be awesome, but like we can be hopeful. Like being hopeful is never a bad thing. I hope for a new Banjo every single year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the most realistic expectation for what's going to happen is that it's going to be treated a lot like Bethesda. And you even see it in the way that they're naming their shows, where it's the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase. Like we're going to have the Xbox, and probably they'll replace the Bethesda branding and just kind of bake that into Xbox slowly. But it's going to be like the Xbox and Activision Blizzard Showcase. And so that's where you're going to see these two groups of companies that are coming together under one roof show off the projects that they're making and that they're working on. I think that's probably the most realistic expectation. And then in like 10 years, once Singularity is a distant memory, then they'll be like, hey, we have this IP, let's bring it back and do something cool with it. I think that they have a deep library now with this
Hmm.
acquisition, but I think I said it on Twitter or maybe on Discord or something, but like you just bought a record setting money machine. Do not throw a crowbar in it. You know,
No, yeah.
like that thing is printing cash and there are issues with it structurally from like a workforce perspective that definitely need to be addressed. That definitely needs to be handled. But like as far as development goes, if it's not broke, you do not need to fix it.
Yeah, and I've long been upset at some of their Activision's management choices. Like I know Vicarious Visions is a studio pretty close to me, like geography wise, and they were shut down and turned into Blizzard Albany, right? Like that's kind of disappointing to me as someone grew up playing a lot of Vicarious Visions games and kind of felt, I don't know, some sort of bond with the studio. Even like I love their games and them being so close. So I would like to see some of those studios like brought back and freed up and given these reins, but that doesn't really, it doesn't really matter what my feelings are in a capitalist money making machine where Call of Duty makes $1 billion in a weekend. They're still going to want that $1 billion every opening weekend, and then however many it gets you over the course of the one life cycle for that Call of Duty game, right? Um,
And on top of that, just one more thing on
yeah, yeah.
this. When we talk about bringing back a developer, you can't recreate a group of people that existed in 1995. You know,
Hmm.
like in my mind, like I would love to see Neversoft come back since Neversoft, like seeing the eyeball nail coming through with the logo at the
Hmm.
beginning of whenever I'm playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Like I love that kind of thing. But that group of people is gone. Heck, some of them probably have retired. Like they are no longer in the industry. So you can smack a label on whatever you want, that doesn't make it the team that made what it made back in the day. So bringing back developers, I think, is a really overrated statement.
I think that's kind of what Grant Kirkhope said last week when we talked about making a new banjo. Like Rare isn't Rare from
Right,
1998
right.
anymore, right? Like we can all say, "Oh, I wish Rare would make," and it's kind of why I've moved away from saying I wish Rare would make a banjo. I don't care who makes a banjo. I don't think it won't be Banjo One, but Rare is a completely different studio. So we need we I'm okay with other studios making it, which I
Yeah.
think is a good mindset to have, especially when you have however many studios Xbox is going to have now that the deal's going to close, right? Like it's crazy. But TGI asked another question. He says, "Do you guys think Xbox is able to manage ABK given all the concerns about management?" That's an interesting question for sure. Because as we know, ABK has a long history of some unsavory business practices, some sexual harassment stuff that they were under investigation for. I want to be confident because for as much as people like to clown and say Xbox mismanages their studios, apart from two, like 343 in the initiative, like most of their studios are pretty well run, to be honest. Like I feel like people really blow that out of proportion. Um, I think Bobby Kotick needs to be sent on his way. Like, give him his money, which is clearly all he cares about, and maybe get someone else in charge over there. I don't know if Sarah Bond wants to step up and manage that, if that's like a promotion for her or how that would look. Matt Booty is clearly busy with all the current internal studios. So, but I think implementing some new person who's been in the Xbox executive leadership role over there would be a good strategy.
Yeah, you've got to get a new leader that they can manage it, but it's going to have to be somebody that's kind of like compartmentalized to that role. Like it can't just be Matt Booty going from Rare to the initiative, then over to just swing by Activision Blizzard. Like that's a full time job. But they've got to get Bobby Kotick out of there. Even if the money machine is functional, like I said, it's got issues, and he's one of them. So we got to get that out. But and I would even push back a little bit. I think that personally, for me, I haven't seen evidence that Microsoft is managing as well as they could. Just because I think
Oh,
that the
I'm sure they
next,
could do better.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like the next couple of years are really going to be the proving ground of like, is Fable a killer game that didn't have crunch that turns out to be a 10 out of 10? Is Starfield, and I mean, that's not really a good example because it's Bethesda, but you know what I'm saying? Like when Forza Motorsport comes out, is that going to be a killer game that was well managed, no crunch, no issues? Like it's just a good game? Because right now we're still waiting on the games. Like you can
Hmm.
have good management, still got to have that work output, and we're still working on getting that. So they're on the right track. We've just got to deliver. You know, you're on the final stretch here.
Yeah, I think the class of 2018, where you have the Ninja Theory and Compulsion, once they start putting out their next projects, and then we get like this wasn't made like under crunch, and hopefully they review very well and like live up to all the expectations. Once we start getting into that rhythm, I think then we can say like Xbox has kind of turned a corner and like are hitting a output they should be. But even then, with so many studios, I guarantee there's gonna be like the occasional, ooh, this game's probably like low sevens, high sixes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the nature of having all of these studios and having all these games. You're not going to put out 10 out of 10 every single time.
Yeah, yeah. We have one more question who comes from Ethan. He says, "Now that Xbox has finally cleared the deal with ABK, we know they're not going to go after another publisher for the foreseeable future. What individual studios or teams do you guys think Xbox should start looking to acquire or build relationships with?" It kind of leads into something TGI is talking about in the chat with Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal potentially being better under Sony. I mean, they're under Embracer right now, so they just have a partnership with Crystal, but what team would you like to see Xbox kind of build a relationship with and possibly acquire in the future there, Sam?
Hey, I was just googling just to make sure that I had the name right, but Moon Studios, the Ori and the Blind Forest devs,
Mm,
would be a really good pick. Just because I feel like, and I talked about this a little bit when I was on the trophy room last night, but what PlayStation does well with their acquisition strategy is they line up picks that align with their company values. Like they know what makes a good PlayStation game, and they find teams that have that same set of skills and same idea. And I think that Xbox is redefining what Xbox is right now. Like now that we're getting ABK in the door, are we getting back to that? We are and I know it's like an old trope, but like the shooter box. Like, are we going to be coalitions bringing Gears of War? Then we get some stuff from the initiative. Then we get ABK bringing in all the Call of Duty games. Are we going to see uh, then the bigger focus on indie games to kind of counter that? Like what we've been seeing with the ID at Xbox stuff that we'll talk about in a minute. But I think that focusing on some of those smaller studios and not forgetting the roots of the gaming community of people like you and I that like to dig into Game Pass, find cool new games like Ori, or like Planet of Lana that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. Really give that set of the gaming industry, that section of the gaming industry, kind of some room to breathe outside of the big shooter space, I guess.
hmm My answer for this is always it's been pretty consistent for a few years now, and that's Asobo, the
Hmm.
team that makes Microsoft Flight Simulator and a Plague Tale, because they clearly have a very good relationship with Microsoft already. That that they are the holders of the Flight Simulator, but I think they clearly believe in the Plague Tale team over there because they've had Innocence and then Requiem launch day one into Game Pass. They've they've just seemed to have a very good relationship, and that kind of would fill a need in Xbox's portfolio for a team that can make those third person over the shoulder narrative style Sony games almost, because that's a Plague Tale is heavily inspired by The Last of Us, for anyone that doesn't know. Like you can, if you've played those two games, and I admit I love A Plague Tale more than The Last of Us, like that those games resonate with me a lot more, but you can clearly see the makeup that makes those games in that studio. So I think that would be a great relationship to continue fostering. They weren't on like the final M&A list that came out during the court case, which surprised me, especially considering some of the studios that were on there, but they were on the initial, like, we're watching them. So I could see that in the future. But maybe it's a thing where Asobo's like, we're happy just being a partner. And I think expanding your partnerships is another good strategy, like we see PlayStation doing with things like Ember Labs, where you get the Kana Bridge of Spirits style games. It never hurts to have more partners out in the industry.
Yeah, without a doubt. Just looking at the games that they've made too, I mean, you're totally right on with like not only have they made the Plague Tale games, a Microsoft Flight Sim, but Quantum Break, Recore, they've got that on their list of projects they've worked on. Also,
Hmm.
shout out to Fuel, a really good ATV game that came out back on the PS3. I enjoyed that one. But they're also working on the Crew and the Crew too, so they got that Ubisoft money coming in too. So I mean, they might, like you said, be totally happy just kind of working and not being acquired.
Yeah, Asobo seems to have they have to get the flight sim team, the Plague Tale team, which apparently is hiring, and I'm super excited for. And then they kind of have their we're for hire team over that. Like, we'll come help you with other projects. So they got their hands in a lot of everything. But Moon Studios, I think, makes a lot of sense. I remember a year or two ago when there was a report that came out that Microsoft and their relationship wasn't very good, some
Mm,
behind the scenes stuff. So I don't know if that's been remedied. But I think Ori obviously is that series is one of the most critically acclaimed on Xbox right now. So that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense for me if you were to foster a relationship that has already bared fruit, right?
Right. Yeah, was that a hint? Do you know something we don't? It's been remedied. Oh, oh, oh! Kevin knows a
That would
secret.
be awesome.
That would be pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie.
I doubt it, because I think Epic invested in Remedy, and
Oh yeah, they're not going
PlayStation
anywhere.
invested in Epic.
Yeah,
It's
they're
this whole
independent.
I think they're doing just fine getting all
Hmm.
these deals.
Hmm.
So we can move on if there's nothing else you want to say about the Activision Blizzard. You've taken up 42 minutes
Yeah,
talking
I am
about it.
good. I think that I'm gonna skip all thoughts of that throughout the rest of the week, so we are good to
All
go.
right, let's move into something a little more exciting. Story number two: there's a Black Panther game in development at EA. So EA and Marvel Games have announced Cliffhanger Games, a new AAA development studio in Seattle. And for their first game, they'll be working on an original third-person single-player Black Panther game. The studio will be led by Kevin Stevens, formerly of Monolith, with a staff of industry veterans who have worked on games like Halo Infinite, God of War, and the Shadow of War series. So, Sam, what do we think in Black Panther, new EA project? Probably a few years away, but does this get you excited?
Yeah, I think it's neat. I think that I always am hesitant whenever I see like what we have written here, where it's staff. This is their first game, but it's packed with industry veterans that have worked on, and then they list a ton of AAA games. Like, yeah, they've got tons of experience, which is very important. But how do they work together? Or do they have that synergy that can make a really good game with a big IP like Black Panther? In collaboration with Marvel Games. Like, that's a big ask for a team's first game. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm not a huge Black Panther fan, not a big Marvel guy in general. Like, I like to watch Captain America, the Avengers, Spider-Man, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I think it's cool that it's happening. I think that it's cool to see more representation, where it's not just Captain America game, Iron Man game, like to see Black Panther kind of get the spotlight. I think it was kind of a nice surprise, even though we had known this was probably on the way for a while, thanks to some leaks and things throughout the years. But what do you think? You pumped about the new Black Panther game?
Black Panther isn't my favorite Marvel superhero. I love Marvel. Like, I grew up with Marvel. That's kind of basically only go to the movies these days to see Marvel movies. So I'm very much in the Marvel universe there. I've never been the biggest Black Panther guy. I think this is cool from a perspective where EA clearly has a good relationship with Disney and Marvel because they're already working on that Iron Man game, which I'm excited for. Like I've long said, like if you take things that you do with Dead Space, the flying sections, or even something like Anthem, where I think the flying was good, but everything else was kind of bad in that game. If you take things that you've done in the past and kind of reshape them, you can have a good Iron Man game. Like I'm excited for the Iron Man game. Um, Black Panther, I think, is a weird choice only because I'm pretty sure that is it Amy Henning's team over at is it Sundance? I can't forget, but didn't they announce a Captain America and Black Panther game? Like we
Yes.
already have a game with Black Panther coming, so to make another one when there's so many other heroes that could have gotten the spotlight. And if it is, if we want to talk about like shining diverse characters, like there are tons of heroes we could have chosen that I think Black Panther is relevant as culturally so. I think the Black Panther movie is one of the first MCU movies that like got an Oscar nomination or whatever, right? Like he clearly is a big name, especially these days, but I would just like to see a little more diversity, especially because we already have a game with Black Panther in development.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that they wiped the table with all of these and just remaster Incredible Hulk Tools of Destruction and then call it a day because that was a phenomenal game. No, but in all seriousness, I agree with you. I think it's cool. But I think the Black Panther is a big IP right now. I think that with all these new movies coming out, with Chadwick Boseman who like nailed it, and then now you've kind of got this big gap of like we want more Black Panther. How are they continuing to kind of figure out how they're going to helm that franchise going forward? How do they bring it into the gaming space? These are all questions they've got to answer. But like you said at the beginning, this is going to be something we talk about for like 2-3 years,
Hmm.
and who knows how development will go on this. But uh, as long as it feels good, like that combat is really important. Just because Black Panther's just kicking ass with precision, and it can't feel sloppy. It can't feel like you're just bouncing around from enemy to enemy like a little ping pong ball. Like it's got to be really impactful. So hopefully they nail the feel.
Yeah, and they have people like what God of War, the Shadow of War series. So like they have people that know how to make this third person combat that feels pretty good, right? So I'm confident. Clearly years away though, so we'll have to stay tuned to see what is there. But what we didn't have to wait for, Sam, the ID at Xbox showcase that happened this week. So same day that the the ABK deal got approved, we
Mm.
had an ID at Xbox showcase like 40 minutes later. And to be fair, pretty good showcase in my opinion. Sam, did you have time to check this one out?
I did, yeah. I watched it at the gym the day of, and I know that the news overshadowed the idea at
Hmm.
Xbox thing because everybody's talking about the FTC. But I just got to say, IGN nailed it. Like I think that Brian Altano was doing a lot of the scripting for this one. I think I saw him tweet about that. Just a really well put together show that didn't feel like too much of an ad. Like it wasn't just advertising all these games. Like it was a really good presentation, and then with some deep dives with developers, some gameplay and stuff after. So really well done for the team at IGN. But I was really impressed as well. I think that when you come out with an IGN show from Xbox and it beats the Capcom showcase, which isn't saying much, but like you're doing better than the Capcom showcase, that's crazy. So good on them. I'm really happy for it.
Yeah, so just so we can run, I'm gonna run through the list of games and we can talk about. And feel free to stop me at one that piqued your interest, and we can touch on it more. But they opened up with Monolith Requiem of the Ancients, which is an action adventure indie style game. I thought this one looked pretty cool. As I was like, okay, we're starting strong. This one looks like a game that I would probably play, especially if it was in Game Pass. Like it'd be a no brainer for
Same.
me. Hellboy Web of Weird
Yep.
coming soon is all we got. We got a new trailer. I remember this game was revealed, I think, at the Game Awards, or maybe Summer Game Fest, and we got a little teaser. We actually got to see some gameplay this time where Hellboy was in action. Didn't really do much for me, but that said, I'm not the biggest Hellboy fan.
Yeah, that's what it is. This is a game for the Hellboy fans. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is Dark Horse Comics' debut game. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think so. So it's neat to see them kind of getting into the gaming space. And I could easily see them continuing these projects where they get IP that maybe they've made statues for, and they're like, hey, we have this sick statue, but we also have a development team. You want a game? So I hope that that's kind of what this eventually spirals into. I could see them doing really well.
Yeah, we got a release date for Everspace 2 coming August 15th to Xbox and PS5, but it's coming to Game Pass same day. And I know a friend of the show, Luke Lore, over there at the Xbox Expansion Pass, did an interview with them, I believe yesterday. I think it's out now. So go check that one out if you haven't and you're interested in about Everspace 2. But this game looked pretty good, I thought. It looked very polished. I played that game Chorus, which
Yeah.
was that space fighting game, and this looked like a better version of that to me almost.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I played Chorus as well. I reviewed it actually, and it was a really good game. The story, it is what it is, but I
Hmm.
I love a good space shooter. And I think that Everspace 2 is hitting that sweet spot for me where I don't have the time to invest in No Man's Sky, and I'm not going to put 300 hours into Starfield because I'm not that guy. But Everspace 2 is kind of like that nice in between single player experience. Number one, thank you, and number two, it's like a just a nice looking, good feeling from what we're seeing space shooter, and I think
Hmm.
that's what's really exciting for me. So I'm absolutely diving in. Probably would have bought it if it hadn't been on Game Pass. Like it just looks really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say it being on Game Pass definitely opens this one up. Where I
Hmm.
don't know if I'm gonna get to in August, just because there's quite a few things, and then September, October, November is packed. But like knowing it's there, I think I'll check this one out at some point. But the next one definitely one on. It's also coming to Game Pass. Sea of Stars. We got a new trailer August 29th coming. I've been in on this game since it was revealed. I've loved everything I've seen about it. This game looks phenomenal. A real spiritual inspiration inspired game from Chrono Trigger is from the looks of it. So I know it's from coming from the team that did The Messenger, and I never played that. That's one of those puzzle games, but this game looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. This is one for me where this is not typically the kind of game that I would gravitate towards on day one, but I kind of put this one in the same vein as something like for me, TMNT Shredder's Revenge, where not my kind of game, not a big brawler to begin with, but to be able to dive in with Game Pass and check it out and then really enjoy it. Like I think that could be what this does for me. So pumped to see Sea of Stars landing on Game Pass, and it's a nice late summer game. That's a good
Mhm.
time for games to land, I think.
My only concern is that it's literally 1 week before Starfield comes out, or 2 days if you get the early access edition. So I don't know about the release timing of this, but it is hopefully it's not too long. Since it is like an indie game, hopefully
Yeah.
it hangs out 10-ish, 15-hour range. Just nice, quick, good game.
Yeah, I think so. And then, on top of that, what's the crossover for those two audiences? Like, will the indie community really be diving into Starfield on day one, or would they rather play Sea of Stars Sea of Stars, and then dive into Starfield later? Um, I'm sure there's crossover like you and I and the people that are listening to this podcast, but maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it is. The fact they're both landing in Game Pass, though, we know where that marketing money's going. You're not throwing Sea of Stars up next to Starfield. That whole thing's going to be full of Todd Howard. So,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely unfortunate.
Next, we got available today, Soulless. It was a narrative game about hacking. This one didn't really do anything for me.
I'm good.
Yeah. Next was Wordless, coming fall 2023 from Thunderful. It's a 2D adventure platformer with turn based combat. Very interesting premise. I don't know if this is a Kevin game. It looked kind of, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, it looked artsy because it was like, oh, we're
Mm,
very colorful. And uh, I'm not sure about this one.
yeah, I mean, I love Thunderful. They did really well with the Gunk. I know
I
that was
love
on
the
their
gunk.
acquisition. Yeah, the Gunk's great, but this was on the Xbox acquisition list, so clearly they see something in the team at Thunderful. So I might check it out. We'll see what happens, but I agree, not really something that's going to be climbing my list personally.
Another trailer for Myth Force. This was revealed at the Nintendo Direct we got a few weeks ago. It's coming September 12th to Xbox. Looks very, I don't know. It's like old. It's like Saturday morning cartoon meets
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls almost.
Yeah, that's the trope of it. So this one's not Game Pass, right?
No, not as far. I don't remember seeing Game Pass on there.
unfortunate because I would I would love to check it out. I know this is like going to be used as evidence for why Game Pass is bad, but like this is not a game I'm going to pick up on day one.
Hmm.
I just imagine like a Saturday Game Pass drop. Perfect for this, where this is like it lands at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning and it's like the Saturday morning cartoon game. Do it, man. And of course they've got accountants behind the scenes that are crunching the numbers and they're like, well, we need to make money. So I totally understand the actual business side of it, but I'm interested, but it'll probably be like a winter sale game for me, I would say.
Especially because it's co-op. I think Game Pass would have helped some people
Yeah,
pick this one up.
definitely, definitely.
Jackbox Party Pack 10 is coming. I didn't know we were up to 10. I think these games are fun, but man, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I played this with my old company. We would all hang out in the break room and play Jackbox games. That was how we did like company bonding. But outside of that, Jackbox is just a passing memory for me. So good on you for number 10. Congrats.
Next trailer was Roman Sands, and I put a note here that says couldn't make heads or tails of this trailer, to be honest. So if you're expecting some analysis, I have no idea what I watched.
Well, on my end, I don't even remember what this one is. So Roman Sands coming soon to a theater near you.
Scarlet Deer Inn. This was some alpha footage. It
Oh yeah.
looked like Pentiment is what I wrote down. You played as a girl, and it kind of had like the same text box almost, and like similar art style is what I was getting from this.
This is the one with the sewing machine in it, right? Where they're like
Yes.
sewing the characters. Yeah,
Hmm.
I wasn't a big Pentiment guy. The art style is just not my thing. I probably played for 2 or 3 hours of it, but I mean, hey, Xbox is all about variety. So people out there, the sewing fans, if you're on Threads, this one's for you.
Available today, we got Rain World Downpour. It looked like a Metroidvania platformer. Looked like there were 5 different character paths to choose from. Looks neat. Probably not something I'm gonna check out, but I know I could see there being an audience for this one.
Yeah, Rain World was big in the indie space back. I can't remember if it was like 2012, I want to say, like it was around that. The original Rain World was a big deal, but cool to see it getting a sequel. Like you, not going to dive in for me personally, but glad to see it as a shadow drop. I think that's a pretty big get compared to others they could have had.
Vampire Survivors Couch Co-op mode is now available. We got the trailer. If I had someone to play couch co-op with, this would be awesome because I loved Vampire Survivors
I think it
so.
lands in August. I don't think it's
Oh,
out
okay.
quite yet. Yeah,
Mm.
but yeah, Vampire Survivors. I'm with you. Very good game. Very good game.
And
My what were you gonna say?
dopamine. It's dopamine.
Yeah, it's literally the ultimate. I just worked a 10-hour shift. I'm tired. I come home, sling sword, kill random enemy. Like there's nothing to it. But I'm excited about this. My girlfriend loves Vampire Survivors,
Great.
and we would always take turns playing it back and forth. So the fact we both get to dive in, absolutely, and it includes the DLC. That's awesome. So really happy to see that one.
Vampire Survivors is one that I haven't. It's been installed on my Xbox since it came out. I played way too much of it, and then I keep buying the DLC because I'm like, I gotta support the devs, and it's like
Yeah, same.
$2. But I'm like,
Yeah,
what do I care? You know.
exactly. It's $2.
Available today, Axiom Verge 2 is finally on Xbox. You can buy it separately or in a bundle with the original Axiom Verge. It's a highly acclaimed Metroidvania style game. So I know people have probably been waiting for this one, but not really for me.
Yeah, not for me either, but I understand the significance of it. So congrats to the Metroidvania fans out there for some Axiom Verge action.
The next one was probably my biggest surprise of the entire showcase. Stray Souls is coming fall 2023. This is a almost survival horror esque game. Kind of gave me the Medium meets Resident Evil vibes, and that's fitting because the composer is Akira Yamaoka, who did the soundtrack for the Medium, which I know the Medium gets a lot of flack. I personally loved it, and I
Yeah.
love the soundtrack. I listen to the soundtrack like on my Spotify playlist because I really enjoy it. So this one's on my radar. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I thought this was really neat. I think that you hit the nail on the head. I hadn't even thought about the medium whenever I was checking it out. I was thinking more of the Resident Evil kind of look to the camera and the kind of Silent Hill inspiration, some in there as well. But really horrifying moments in the trailer overall. So I don't know how scary it'll actually be once you bake in the video game jank, but
Mhm.
is definitely a neat one to watch.
There was a moment in the trailer I was like, I can tell this is like an indie game because they did a roll and the models went through each other, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you put this in a trailer, you know what you're about. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where like Resident Evil 7 specifically is one that I really enjoyed, but it was scary until you started tracking patterns of like where the AI was going and you're like, "Okay, this isn't a man trying to kill me. This is just an AI." And I feel like there's a whole lot of that in this trailer where it's like, "Oh, this is something scary, but this is just probably like a double A indie game." So, yeah, it's still
Speaking
cool
of
though.
men trying to kill you, Texas Chainsaw Massacre trailer was up next, coming to Game Pass August 18th. This is one of those isometric style multiplayer games. I think it's 3v4 instead of 1v4 though.
Mhm.
Um, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre isn't my favorite like horror like slasher franchise, if you will. I much prefer like Halloween, Scream, Friday the 13th. But this is one like I pre-installed it on my Xbox. I'm interested to check this one out because I've had fun with Friday the 13th, Dead by Daylight, and honestly, I think it'd be pretty scary to hear that chainsaw just revving up and you're like not knowing where it's coming from. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. I think this is the ultimate Game Pass case study of like,
Hmm.
everybody has heard of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and it's on Game Pass. I mean, you can find some people to play with. And like, now that I know you're playing, we can dive in and play some together. I don't know how good of a single player game it'll be, but cool to see the IP kind of getting some game action as well.
Hmm. Challengers Game was up next, and I put looks like Genshin Impact meets Overwatch. It had that anime waifu style characters, but it looked to be a hero shooter. Wasn't really my vibe.
Yeah, if you Genshin Impact meets Overwatch, I'm out, man. That's not me. That's not my game. I love the original Overwatch, but I have fallen off of that kind of thing entirely. But good on them, I guess. Good luck with that.
Up next was Stumble Guys, the most blatant ripoff I've ever seen in a video game. This was literally Fall Guys, but it looked like you could punch the other people, or like there were different. At one point, they were in a kart racing mode. I was like, this literally looks like you saw Fall Guys, and we're like, we can make that.
So I will defend this game ever
Okay.
so slightly. Like, yes, it is a blatant Fall Guys ripoff. We all know this. It's exactly what it is. However, I see this as it is what the Turbo Golf Racing, I think is what it is, to
I
Rocket
hated
League.
that. I hated that one
It,
too.
but you know what I'm saying, where
Yeah, yeah,
yes, it is totally Rocket League, but there's enough variation here to warrant both of them existing to where, like you said, there is a kart racer in there. There is a FPS. I saw some first person
yeah.
shooter action going on. So it's not just your little bean people running from point A to point B on an obstacle course. There are like WarioWare-esque mini games thrown in. Um, is it free to play? I don't
I
know.
don't think so.
Oh, well, then it's dead entirely. No way.
I wonder if they're. I wonder if they're. I'm gonna Google it
I know
real
it's on
quick.
mobile. You would assume it's probably free to play.
Stumble guys. Party knockout game. 32 people.
Okay, so it's got I see it on Steam. I think
Pre-register.
it's free because it
Is it
says
free?
play game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if it's free, then I could totally see it being a real competitor. I don't know what their monetization is like, but yeah, I mean, you're not gonna beat Fall Guys, but I think there's room for competition there. The real question is like, is it gonna be overcooked? Is it gonna be the next Fall Guys? How big will it grow is the real question that I've got. But yeah, it is a ripoff. It surely is.
This game must have some money because they have a Mr. Beast collaboration.
Really?
Yeah,
Mr. Beast. Wow.
he's in Stumble Guys. He's a character.
Interesting.
Wild.
Yeah.
Finally closing out the game reveal section was Karateka. Nobody really seen.
Krakatoa.
Yeah, this was a. It looks to be a documentary slash game about the making of
Oh,
Karateka,
yes.
whatever.
Yes. You jogged my memory. This is from Digital Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they did the Atari 50 game, I think, where it's like the 50 years of Atari where they go through it's like a big historical documentary and then you can also play 50 years of Atari games. Um I love this kind of thing personally, just because of game preservation and sharing the knowledge. Like, I'm a big no clip guy. I love watching no clip documentaries. If you haven't checked them out, you absolutely should. It just kind of like catalogs gaming history. So, this is one that I'll probably end up getting just to support Digital Eclipse. I love the work they do because it's like going to an interactive museum of video games whenever they put something out. So awesome to see that. So not for everybody, but definitely for me.
I would rather just watch the documentary, I think. I always find those interesting. Like I just like that history of the Xbox documentary they put out or whatever.
Yes,
That was
power
so
on.
good. I was like, man, this is so intriguing. Like
Yeah.
I would rather watch documentaries about that. I know Double Fine did one too. Like
Hmm.
it's also neat. I don't even need the
Yeah.
game. I don't need to play this game,
Yeah, that
right?
kind of stuff is great. I love all the gaming history stuff. The lore, if you will.
The lore, that's right. Well, Sam, that is all we have for this week's show. Like I said, good idea at Xbox Showcase. Much better than previous years for sure. We didn't have any awkward like Twitch personalities and kind of bringing it. It wasn't 4 hours long. I think that was also a
Yeah.
big plus. So pretty happy. Some games I'm going to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a good show. I'm excited to see the indies getting their own spotlight. I think that if you wheeled that out at the Starfield showcase, I mean, no one's going to
Nobody's
talk
going to
about these
remember
games.
them.
But now it's late summer. All these other showcases are gone. Let them shine. So I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good show.
Well, we will wrap it up there. Sam, thank you for another great episode. Why don't you let people know where they can find you and your wonderful content?
Yeah, man. Thanks for the week number 2. We are back again, and I think we're gonna do it for week number 3 and 4 and even more. But
Mhm.
you can find me on YouTube at JamPackSam. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. I'm constantly posting content throughout the week. On Prime Day, I've ordered a top-down camera rig to then take
Ooh.
pictures of all of the statues that are behind me in a really close-up, nice DSLR kind of fashion. So that's the kind of content that I'm making now in my old young age.
You know what I really love people that what they do with those type of cameras is those when they're like, I bought $300 worth of old video games from some random
Yes.
store. Something about just watching people unbox like packages. It's like, what's in
Yeah.
here? I'm like, I can't get it. I'll watch this all day.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing some stuff. I've got a stack of steel books back there. Like, people just love looking at things. I mean,
Hmm.
I do anyway. Like, I'll look at game collectibles and stuff all day. So, anyways, you can find me over here unboxing a whole bunch of stuff that I probably paid too much money for over the course of the next week.
And you can find me at the Muffin Mon on Twitter. It's a 1 instead of an I and O instead of an A. Follows that Save Game Media over on Twitter. Stay up to date with all of our latest videos, content, and enter our giveaways. Until next week, we'll see you. Goodbye.